Join me in the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Oh, we've got someone little here. We have some small visitors here tonight. I want to welcome everyone here today. We're going to get started with visiting delegation. We have a guest here tonight, Lily Dorn from Yes for Affordable Housing Campaign, Metro Bond, and Measure 102. After discussing it with the board, our families are experiencing rising rent costs, a lack of affordable housing in East Portland and David Douglas, and they asked to get some information on these two measures so they can be educated on how to vote. In a few weeks, I guess, we'll be voting. So, Lily, you want to join us up at the front?
Oh, thank you. Appreciate it. All right. Hi. Good evening. Superintendent Richardson and Chair Christopher and board members, thank you for having me. My name is Lily Dorn, and I work on the Yes for Affordable Housing campaign, and that is the campaign that's working to pass 2 affordable housing measures this November, just 40 days from now, actually. The first measure is a regional affordable housing bond referred to the ballot by Metro. Thank you. And that is Measure 26199. And then the second measure was referred almost unanimously to the ballot by the Oregon legislature, and it's a statewide measure, and that's Measure 102. So beginning with the regional bond, there is now no neighborhood in our region where the average full-time wage-earning renter, a person making roughly $17.85 an hour, can afford a modest 2-bedroom rental home. It's impossible to miss the daily evidence that folks are struggling in our community to make ends meet. So we talk about it with our neighbors, our family, our friends. We're blown away by the fact that the average 1-bedroom apartment in the region now rents for over $1,100. The burden of this crisis, of course, is falling hardest on our lowest income earners in the community, and that includes families, low-income families, families of color, seniors, veterans, people with disabilities. You know, there's really no way to make ends meet right now. Our wages aren't keeping up with our rents, and folks are really suffering. So we know that kids are more likely to succeed in school when they have a stable, safe home to come to venture to at the end of the day. And without addressing this housing crisis, we're going to leave a lot of today's generation of kids behind. I want to touch on the fact that Beaverton Public Schools and Portland Public Schools have 1,500 students experiencing homelessness or housing insecurity. When you think about that number, I mean, that's pretty staggering to think about those kids not having a safe and stable home to come to at the end of the day. So the Regional Affordable Housing Bond, again, Measure 26199, was referred to the ballot by Metro. And it's a critical piece of the puzzle. So it's a $652.8 million bond spread out over 20 years. And so the way that that works is it's 24 cents per $1,000 of assessed value. So that will cost the average homeowner in the region $5 a month or $60 a year. So by proposing a region-wide bond rather than a local bond, more communities benefit from it and contribute to it, lowering that cost to the average homeowner to a fancy coffee a month. Or I like to also think about it as a bus ticket. I take the bus, and that's $5 for a day pass. It's also important to note that the money collected from local homeowners will stay in that community. Each county will decide what makes the most sense and will work with local jurisdictions and their housing authorities to divvy that funding up. They will be accountable to making sure dollars are spent efficiently and effectively with an annual independent and oversight committee. The income limit for families is going to be 80% median family income, or MFI, which for a family of 4 today is roughly $65,000 or less. Priority, of course, will be given to very low income families, so those making 30% MFI, and that for a family of 4 is less than $24,000. So Measure 26199 will build affordable homes and renovate existing homes to be used for affordable housing. So approximately 3,900 affordable homes will be created throughout Washington, Multnomah, and Clackamas counties if both measures pass, and only 2,400 homes if solely the Metro bond passes. There will be a mix of housing options to accommodate a range of family sizes. When possible, help people stay in or near their current neighborhoods and their communities. All homes will be permanently affordable for low-income individuals and families. A property tax is really the most practical option for our community to self-fund affordable housing. The average homeowner has seen their property value increase 65% in the last 5 years, and that same homeowner will only contribute a little bit more than $5 a month to this measure. So we want these dollars to go as far as possible, and that's why we're also asking voters to approve Measure 102. A yes vote on 102 will allow local communities to approve bond funds that can be used in public-private partnership. Right now, there's a limitation to how bonds can be spent in our Constitution. And that limitation prevents bond funds being used with housing providers and businesses and from being leveraged through federal tax dollars or mortgage debt. It will also require audits and public reporting to ensure accountability. Measure 102 will make local affordable housing bonds go further without the added cost to taxpayers, helping thousands more people access housing in Oregon communities that pass affordable housing bonds. This is a small change that will make a big impact. This bond and bonds that communities across our state pass in the future will be able to put different pieces of funding together to stretch those dollars even further. So for example, right now, the bond we're asking you to approve in all 3 counties in the metro region would house up to 7,500 people. But if we also pass Measure 102, that number jumps to 12,000 people. This is our opportunity to keep our communities together. And to address the moral and economic crisis we all see and feel, and to do right by people we love in our communities. And so I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't ask all of you to jump in, not only or jump in as individuals, rather, to support this campaign in any way you can. You know, you can go to affordablehousing.com to get involved, to learn more. But more importantly, I would love for all of you, and there are some folks in the room who have already endorsed these 2 measures, go to our website and endorse and join over 600 coalition partners. We have organizations, businesses, elected officials, community leaders, individuals, all behind these 2 measures, and we're grateful for that. And really, I want to ask that you'll all pledge to vote yes, and we've made it pretty easy. You can actually text November to 38470 to pledge to vote yes this November. And I really just want to thank you all for having me here to talk about these critical ballot measures, and I am more than happy to answer any questions you have.
Does anyone have any questions? Bryce?
Yeah, I'm curious, does the bond just produce multifamily housing, or it doesn't do anything with single-family homes, does it? Or does it buy single-family homes and rent them to?
Yeah, so the bond actually prioritizes more than half of the units to be multifamily units, to really address a lot of intergenerational living. You know, we have a lot of communities of color who live intergenerationally, and I think that that was really important to address because Metro made it a priority to finalize this framework, or rather draft this framework with a racial equity lens. And I think it's really important that we look at the fact that families are really struggling, and a lot of these families have a lot of different family members that live together. So units will be, there will be some single units, but most of them will be 2 bedrooms and up.
No, I think he was asking, were you single-family homes versus multifamily?
Oh, like single
Like
family.
apartments versus
Yeah. So a lot of them will be apartments.
Yeah.
Yeah. Most of them will be complexes.
similar to what we see going up along, I think, Stark and Division.
In Burnside,
In
there's one.
Burnside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's great. I think Measure 102 is incredibly important because you can work with nonprofit providers like affordable housing providers like Hacienda CDC, Rose CDC, Reach CDC, who are experts at affordable housing and know what goes into it. So I think it's a really important piece of the puzzle.
Is your organization involved with like Portland Housing Authority? I suspect it's the Portland Housing Authority that's building some of the high-rise multi-family units that are along Stark and.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think you're referring to sort of some projects that are now being implemented from the 2016 campaign.
I'm not sure what campaign it is, but I'm just a lot of the units that are going up around here. I'm
That's
just wondering
Central City Concern, and it's a CDC with conglomeration of funding that's building that.
Yeah, and really the campaign is just separate from that. I mean, I think we're working with a lot of our coalition partners that include Central and Hacienda and various other CDCs across the region, and we're working with them to pass these measures, but solely to pass them, not involved in any of the implementation.
Sure. Thank you.
Yeah.
Is there any other question? Okay, Lily, thank you. I
Thank you
appreciate you coming here because this is, as we actually discussed in our last board meeting, is an issue in our area. So thank you.
Thank you very much. And I just want to let everyone know I do have lawn signs in my car. So if you would like one, please track me down. All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Okay, who's handling attendee? Derek's going to see if we have any attendee input. None? Okay. Our next item is a recognition, a proclamation for Indigenous Peoples Day. And I'm going to turn this over to Andrea. We kind of work as a team here, and she has a few words to say.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So before you all, you have our proclamation for Indigenous Peoples Day. We are really excited to bring this forward to declare Indigenous Peoples Day on the second Monday in October. And to summarize, Frida will read it here in a bit, but we wanted to make sure that we're celebrating and acknowledging our Indigenous peoples, and specifically the teeth behind this, if you will, is directing our websites and calendar, to reflect Indigenous Peoples Days from here on out. And as I shared before, we in this district are absolutely committed to all students' success, and particularly for our Native American students, continuing forward our work in commitment to equity. We know that Indigenous peoples have always resided in this land, and the district, in fact, was built on Indigenous land, and so we want to make sure that we're taking time to acknowledge that and to celebrate the contributions that many Indigenous peoples have provided, not only in our district but in our community. And so we absolutely stand in solidarity through this proclamation. And just as a little background, I know I shared this before, this is something that I know a few other districts do, and other jurisdictions. So Reynolds and PPS, locally, I know the city of Portland and Metro have also declared similar proclamations, and some other cities nationwide. And then one reminder, we wanted to make sure that we were bringing this before our next Heritage Month proclamation, which will be our Native American Heritage Month, and that will be in November. And so we really thought that this was important to bring forward, given that the date is actually right around the corner, but certainly want to make sure that as we're continuing to build the relationships with our Native American advisory councils and other community members, that we were able to kind of demonstrate the work there. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Chair. Yeah.
This one isn't quite as long. Whereas the David Douglas School Board of Education recognizes that the Indigenous peoples of the lands that would later become known as the Americans have occupied these lands since time immemorial. And whereas the board values the many contributions made to our community through indigenous peoples' knowledge, labor, technology, science, philosophy, arts, and the deep cultural contributions that are substantially shaped our district. And whereas the board has established that each student is to be celebrated and appreciated for the distinct and vibrant contributions made by sharing cultures, language, ideas, beliefs, and values within our school community. And whereas the board recognizes the fact that David Douglas School District is built upon the homelands and villages and traditional use areas of the Multnomah and Clackamas Chinookan of the region, without whom the building of the district would not be possible. And whereas the district has adopted equity policy that states our commitment to closing the achievement gap for Indigenous peoples and creating an educational environment where all students can benefit equally from the educational programs offered, and whereas the district is working towards eliminating the racial predictability and disproportionality on all aspects of education and has recently established the Racial Equity Committee, and whereas the idea of Indigenous Peoples Day was first proposed in 1977 by a delegation of Native nations to the United Nations, and whereas the Oregon American Indian / Alaskan Native State Plan mandates that the public schools of our district teach about the history, culture, contemporary lives, and governments of the indigenous people of the Americas, and with special emphasis on those from Oregon and across the Pacific Northwest. Now, therefore, I, Frida Christopher, Chair of the David Douglas School Board of Directors, do hereby proclaim every second Monday of October to be Indigenous Peoples Day in the David Douglas School District. The district will encourage staff to utilize the second Monday in October as an opportunity to reflect upon the ongoing struggles of Indigenous people of this land, to celebrate the thriving cultures and values of the Indigenous peoples of our region, and to stand in solidarity with Indigenous people everywhere. Appropriate district calendars and websites shall reference the second Monday of October as Indigenous Peoples Day. The struggles and achievements of Indigenous peoples contribute profoundly to the culture and community of the district. The district affirms the contribution and reaffirms its ongoing commitment to building awareness and an inclusive society. The David Douglas School Board of Directors strongly encourage our staff and community to observe, recognize, and celebrate the culture, heritage, and contributions of Native Americans to our country, our state, our cities, and our schools. Thank you. Does anyone else have any comments? Okay, now we get on to the big business of the evening, what everyone's waiting for. But first, Anna, chair of our Racial Equity Committee, their committee met today and have a couple of recommendations in our selection process.
Yes, thank you. I want to clarify that I'm not the chair of the committee. I'm one of 3 board representatives of the committee. But I do have some input that I've collected from our equity committee, which met just previous to this meeting, regarding their desired outcome of our vote tonight. First and foremost, the question was posed to them around the racial identity of whoever we end up appointing, and they stated that it was important to them that we appoint a person of color. The reason cited was in the spirit of reflecting the community that we actually serve. There were also some expressed desires around someone who is highly competent and experienced professionally, also somebody who has a strong grasp of Oregon and especially East Portland. And then finally, some thoughts for the future. They would love to see representation beyond what we already have on the board, including a youth or a student. Does Kyle or Stephanie have anything to add?
Exactly what I have in my notes.
Cool.
Okay. Okay, let's get on with the process.
Please.
Wrote some notes. First of all, I want to thank all the participants. I'll tell you, this isn't going to be an easy decision. We had a slate of applicants that I think every single one of them could sit up here and be a qualified board member and a contributing board member. So in the past, there used to maybe 3 or 4 to have we had 4 withdrawals, so 10 to choose from. That's quite a selection. But a reminder, again, we can only pick one. This position won't be effective until October 15th. And those, I want to say, since we can only pick one, those that aren't selected, there's an election in May, and it looks like there'll be 1 and possibly 2 open seats. So we encourage anyone that isn't selected, they may want to consider running in the spring. We're going to start out with nominations from the board, and once the nominations are closed, we'll do a first round of voting. In the first round, if a nominee only gets 1 vote, they'll be dropped off for the second round. And we'll see how many nominations, because I don't know how many nominations we're going to get. So we'll see how it goes from there, and how we need to pare it down till we have 1 person. So I guess first thing off the bat is I'm going to open it up for nominations.
Madam Chair, can I just ask a question? I'm just curious if any of the people who are on the list that we might be voting for, if they're not here, is that an indication that maybe they've withdrawn, or does anybody know why they're not here?
It's unlikely that that's an indication. They have access to reach out to us. Everybody that withdrew either emailed the board as a whole or got in contact with Lori. So at this point, I'm speaking for you.
But there's 10 applicants.
Those 10 are
still applicants.
Are considered active applicants.
I'm also not 100% certain we made it super clear that they should come tonight. So I definitely think it's not a. I don't know that we made that clear that it was probably a good idea to come. So we made sure they came last time to present, but I don't think that we actually told them you should come tonight too.
Their absence in not being here tonight should not be an indication that we shouldn't consider them.
Right. And you all have your applications you reviewed and whatnot. Okay, so we're going to open it up for nominations. Do I have any nominations?
Madam Chair, I'd like to nominate Sherry Ann May.
Okay. Do I have any other nominations?
I'd like to nominate Donna Barber.
Any other nominations?
I'd like to nominate Katrina Holland.
Okay. Is there any other nominations? Is there a motion? Is there a move to close the nominations?
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Okay. We've closed nominations. Okay, the first round will go. I'll keep track of this, and Lori's keeping track of all this, right? Can't tell. We're all keeping track of this. Okay. I need those in favor of share.
I think we just roll call, right?
Yeah. Okay. You
Certainly defer to board leadership, but having done this, I think for keeping track, it's better
if
just
we
go
call.
one by one,
Okay.
and then they give the name.
Then we'll go out, start with Kyle.
Sherry Ann May.
Katrina Holland.
Christine.
Donna Barber.
Sherry Ann May.
Katrina Holland.
Donna Barber.
And my vote is to Donna Barber. Okay. We're ending up like we did last time, where we have 1 with 3 and 2 twos. So what we do now is set Donna aside and look at Sherry Ann and Katrina. And
I don't believe anybody is, but customary to just say, is anyone willing to change at this point, or is everybody still pretty set?
I'm letting them get a second chance. I doubt if anyone wants to change with their first choice.
Let me just say, I wish I could vote all 3 of them onto the board.
I think we all.
I wish I could.
I think we all kind of felt that way. Okay, I'll start with Christine between Sherry Ann and Katrina.
I'll go with Katrina Holland.
Sherry Ann May.
Katrina Holland.
I will go with Sherry Ann.
Katrina Holland.
Sherry Ann May.
You guys are going to make me break the tie. That's not very nice of any of you, because I know both these people very well, and I think they would be very, very qualified, both of them, for this position. But I have to go with what I think we need on the board, and I'll go with Katrina Holland. Okay, so now it's going to be between Donna and Katrina. I'm going to go that way.
Donna Barber.
Katrina Holland.
Christine?
Donna Barber.
Miss Barber.
Katrina Holland.
Donna Barber.
And I'm going with Donna Barber. So Donna Barber will be our next board member. I really do want to thank everyone and reiterate about running this May. Christine can attest. She applied for a position and wasn't selected, and there happened to be 2 open positions the next spring. And a little encourager for me, she ran and became one of our board members. So, and Anna did the same thing. So it's not unusual. Actually, I did a similar thing myself all those years ago, so it is not unusual for that to occur. We do appreciate everyone applying. I just felt wonderful that so much interested in it. We don't know if we did a better job of outreach or just there's more interested people within the district than there has been for a while, but to me it warms me to have so many people wanting to be involved in our district. Stephanie, comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I actually did run, and I am happy to share my knowledge and experience with anyone here that's interested in running a campaign and running for a position in any one of you, because I think that we had some incredible candidates, and I'm happy to share that experience with you.
Okay, any other comments?
Just a reiteration of everything that everybody said. The field was incredible. I think, this is a situation where I don't know that there was much crosstalk other than that involved names, because there was no point to it, right? The field across the board was great. And certainly I'm super excited with the person that will be joining us in October. I'm super sad that the people that won't be, and just to reiterate, we know for sure that one position will be open. Not that you can't run against anybody, but that I strongly encourage people that were interested to stay involved and to start now.
And we always want to push our Racial Equity Committee as well as our Family Engagement Committee. We already have a few people who chose to drop out that have contacted Ken about family engagement. So we encourage everyone, and it's always fun if you have time to get involved in the schools at the school level. I did that for 20 years and couldn't for 20, and now I'm back in, and it warms your heart to work with the little ones. So if you can do that, that's wonderful too. So,
can I say yes, Andrea? So I also wanted to acknowledge and thank everyone who applied. It was certainly a very difficult decision for all of us, but I think it's a testament to really the civic engagement that I know has been bubbling up in our community. I think the good work of the district, and also the need, frankly, for candidates to be involved at the local level. And so I do just want to echo the need across the board for folks to continually work with us in the district on various fronts. And then I also want to make sure that I offer acknowledgments to Anna and the service that she has provided in the board. I will certainly miss having her voice and her advocacy for our families, and will certainly just wanted to make sure that we were acknowledging that her good work has really, I think, laid us really incredible foundation, particularly for equity work, but I think across the board. And so thank you so much for your time and your dedication.
Do we have one more meeting with Anna?
We have, so I'm waiting for my comments till next time. Yes, Ken.
Just echo, I can't add anything new, but I will say thank you for all of those who are involved and those who couldn't make it tonight on behalf of our staff. And we have a number of staff members in the audience. We have staff around this table. Just to echo the same thank you, gratitude for your interest. It means a lot. Our educators believe in our kids, believe in our communities, and do everything they can every day for our kids. And knowing that there's individuals in the community that support that and are passionate about that just helps fuel that fire, helps fuel that work. So again, I think it's been said, but thank you as well I guess on behalf of the staff, say thank you.
Okay, we have one more item on our agenda, the proclamation process. Last month, Kyle, you asked us to come up with a process. So Andrea and I got together and wrote up a process to get your inputs. This is a draft. It is strictly a draft. We try to keep as simple. Now, she does it a little more formally than I would. You would have probably gotten about 5 bullets. But we tried to put a timeline in there so people could be notified well in advance, that the leadership would know before an agenda meeting, so it could be brought to the leadership, and make sure that a proclamation is timely in your packet when the packets go out. So is there any comments on the draft? Did you see where anything you'd like changed?
Just as part of the discussion, the reason that I brought this up is it's all great when we all get along and everything's great, but we've seen some other boards in different areas. Just some clarification or questions, and maybe this doesn't address it, but traditionally our board either has agenda items at the discretion of board leadership or the superintendent's office through board leadership, or 2 board members bringing something forward. Those would be agenda items, not necessarily proclamations. If there's a proclamation, does that stand, I guess? Is one person bringing this, or, you already know.
So we already looked into, in anticipation of your question, Kyle, and I think Ken could probably articulate better than I can, but I think what I took away from the legal jargon that was given back to me was that because proclamations aren't usually on the agenda, it doesn't actually get at what you're suggesting for the 2. And I think the other piece of this, just so that you know, and I think we have checked in about this also, is that it's part of, I think, a larger conversation in general around that process. But I don't know if you all have anything else to add. But to answer your question, I would say no. In this case,
that was my expectation. So the timeline is fantastic.
But the timeline also gives it that it comes to leadership, and leadership may decide it is an appropriate proclamation and will respond back to that board member on why.
Perfect. That's why we choose board leadership.
Yeah, so it's kind of a give. We want to make sure that everything's done in a timely fashion. Everybody knows what the timeline is, and then it can be looked at, because we don't want frivolous proclamation. Yeah.
You're not here to push my button over here. Let me turn the red light on. A frivolous proclamation to one person may not be, but just functionally, that's the purpose of board leadership in my eyes. And if the board didn't like the response, there's recourse for that, right? But that's what I was looking for, is a proclamation is brought, and the functional gatekeeper is board leadership. Yeah. Perfect.
And I think the reason, and one of the things I'm trying to distill also in memory, is that because proclamations don't have an actual action associated with it, whereas the agenda items usually do. And so that was kind of the other reasoning for not being within that usual guideline of the 2 board members bringing something in order to actually vote, right? So I think that's different.
Yes, that's the, you want to jump in? I was just saying that's the clarification, right? So for me, 2 board members can, I guess, functionally bypass board leadership, right? A proclamation, I'm looking to ensure that you can't, because it's not an agenda item. So this clarifies it for me.
Yeah, this is not an agenda item. Stephanie, you had a question?
Just that the resolution proclamation we just passed does have directives in it, so that isn't necessarily true that they don't. Like directing the district to do, okay, so.
It says encourages.
Encourages, okay. Got it, thank you. I'm also a little sticklery when it comes.
Any other questions?
Wonk off one of these days.
Will somebody please summarize what was said?
Which one?
So there was a little extra noise over here when you were speaking, so I didn't really hear your question or your thought. But I think you were saying that the difference between, well, why don't you say it? The proclamation doesn't tell us to do something.
Yeah, it doesn't tell the board or the district to do anything, whereas, and I said, well, what this kind of does, and it was like, no, it's encouraging, it's not telling the district to, yeah.
Which really the conversation was, it's bouncing around a little bit, that the specific difference that we looked into and make sure we got feedback from OSBA on is if there's an action item, right? And proclamations traditionally have not been action items. They're proclaiming, they're encouraging, recommending even, but there's no action. The board's not voting on them, right? So that's the difference, where typically if the board's voting, then there'd be a directive associated with it in this type of language.
And I'll clarify a couple of things as well. One, so back to kind of the first portion of this conversation, we are, based on the feedback that we received, choosing to, and I think for transparency also, want to actually put it on the agenda. So that is something that is different, but I think will be very helpful moving forward. So that is, even though this is a proclamation, just wanted to clarify that it is something that we are going to be writing out. And then
and that is more so that's why you put it under recognitions. Just so you're aware that it's on and going to be done that evening.
Yeah, and then just to I'm sure you all are aware, in other districts they actually have chosen to go the route of resolution. And if that is something that you all are wanting to do, where we would be taking an action, where we would, I think, be fully within our ability to put some additional teeth around any type of proclamation like this, certainly let us know. I think we're open to that. We just wanted to clarify kind of the different tools that we have available to us in terms of types of policy. And so, so that has been something that other districts have been doing versus a proclamation, just to clarify.
I just have a question, and I'm sorry, maybe you kind of addressed this, but when I say you, I'm sorry, I'm referring, Andrea, you might have referred to this. Does the fact that a proclamation, because this proclamation made it sound like going forward every second Monday in October going forward, right? Isn't that's what it says? It seems to me that that'd be more of a resolution if we're going to continue this on and on without the benefit of a resolution. It doesn't seem like we should be saying that this will happen every year hereafter. You see what I'm kind of saying?
That's a discussion we have to have, because these kind of proclamations are kind of new to all of us. So Ken and I had to talk about it, and we need to research it more, whether a proclamation is done each year or it's only done once. So from henceforward, we proclaimed Latinx Heritage Month. Well, it's actually nationally proclaimed too, so it's at a specific time. Same with Indigenous Day. It's on a specific day. I know the foundation that works on the calendar looks at putting that also on the calendar, so it's on the calendar. And we're looking, as a foundation, doing the calendar with the district, is looking, should there be other things we're recognizing that we haven't on our calendar? Okay. We have to be careful, but we, so it's just kind of discussion we have to have. Yeah. It's new to all of us.
The functional answer, because of the resolution question, is we have proclaimed it up until the point that some future board unproclaims it. That's all that has to happen.
Well, just an observation. It seemed to me that if we're going to do this as a proclamation, it would have more teeth if we did read it every year, instead of just saying that we're going to do this every year on the second Monday of October. But prior to that second Monday in October, it was proclaimed again.
That's what we're going to have some discussion on, about whether to do that.
All right. Well, I'll just throw my 2 cents in. I like that idea of reading it again, because
reading it again, it's board leadership discretion, but reading it again, and if there's any amendments to it, right? If it has grown, or if there's something,
Oh, no, that's what this discussion item was about. You asked us to bring something. We worked something up, and it was to be discussed, but it sounds like you're fine with how it is. So we'll just use this, that you recognize this is the timeline if anyone wants to bring a proclamation.
So I think what I can do is I can remove the draft if there aren't any actual edits, and then we can send it out to you all.
Yeah, Lori can.
Does that make sense? Or Lori can. Okay, thank you all.
Do we have any other business? Sometimes Pat throws something in there. You don't have any? Okay, do you have?
Just something for board leadership to consider. We're recorded, we're archived and such. Reviewing our policies and the policies of requirement, our meeting minutes are in excess. The meeting minutes should be the functional action that happened. They should not be flavor. I leave that to the board leadership to determine, but I know for a long time there was a desire to have certain things placed, but it's not required. But I leave it to you to.
And it makes sense. It's not necessary anymore now that we're doing it, streaming it.
It's really not.
And it's archived. It will help Lori with taking the notes. Is that okay, since it's streamed and it's archived? And
I would have a question about accessibility, in terms of, for example, if someone who is visually impaired in any way wanted to access the full record, would there not being a full written record be a barrier to that?
You always recorded.
I don't know. I kind of feel like there's Title II regulations, right, in terms of accessibility. If there are requests for public documents, that is provided in a way that's accessible. But you all probably have more. Sorry, you all probably.
It's they're all.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, we have recordings as well of it.
Audio recordings.
Audio recordings.
Got it.
They've always been audio recorded.
Well, I think, audio, but I think ultimately it's however is most accessible to the individual is the Title II regulation.
Okay. And then transcription and translation wise, would that be a barrier for non-English speakers?
Same thing. So if there are, that kind of falls, I think, more under Title VI, right? So making sure that we have accessible services and documents for anyone who's requesting, right? Mm-hmm. Is that, okay.
It is that request fee, so I want to be clear.
It requires a request.
Right, correct.
Yeah. But it's functionally a request of the mandated document, right? And that's what I'm saying is our mandated document is an expanded version.
And what I'm saying is I would be more in favor of more information than less or harder to access information from a government accountability standpoint.
Okay. We'll have to discuss it more. Is there any other business? Is there any board reports? Okay. We did 2 weeks ago. Depends how busy you were.
The equity committee, as already been announced, met. Fantastic progress. The equity committee in and of itself is coming into its own as a functioning board committee. The work is progressing great. There was some discussion in our meeting today around, you sit back and you look at, well, what have you done? And the point that was stressed was we've done a lot. We've made it so that this is a continuous, functioning, moving forward committee, and we are at the point now where we're bringing back future agenda items that are going to be meaningful and can eventually result in things being brought up to the board. So the committee's progress is fantastic, actually.
Are you looking at, one time Anna asked about the budget and incorporating, bringing forth for the administration to look at as they're developing the budget recommendations?
Your question is around budget committee membership?
No,
or
about equity committee. You had indicated you were wondering from a budget
that was me,
standpoint.
yeah.
Oh, one of you did. I know, a budget standpoint, funding for potential items that you'd recommend. And I remember at the time we said, about this time is when you should start bringing them forward to the administration so they can review them or fold them in.
So the request was actually to find a baseline, right? What are our investments right now in equity, racial equity work in our district? Is there some way to pull that information out of the budget so that we can know if, we increase commitments to racial equity, if the outcomes follow? It was more about that. Yeah, like how to baseline financial investments in racial equity work in our district that we're already doing, some of it, and looking at, if we make future investments, how does that move the needle? That was more my interest.
I wonder if there's a way, I'm just kind of thinking out loud here. I know at the city we have opportunity for the Office of Equity and Human Rights to play a pretty integral role in the budgeting process. And so I'm just wondering if there are other opportunities for the Equity Committee to also be engaged, whether it's through additional training or opportunities for them to have that kind of additional level of accountability and advisory role as we're talking about how resources are allocated and whether or not that really is the most equitable way. Just might be something to think about. I'm sure you all are already talking about it.
Right, and I think that will be up to the committee membership, but also you and Donna, whoever you end up appointing as the board liaison to the committee, to make sure that happens in a streamlined way.
Yeah, that, I guess, to also echo this, the committee is highly interested in how board members are appointed to board committees and what the changes that the board is going through right now will cause as far as board, you know where I'm going.
I hadn't given anything out until we knew who our new person was, because it just seemed more logical to me to wait till we had our new person, since it was so close in a year, and the only meeting being held was the Equity Committee. So, yeah, that'll be looked at as well.
Thank you.
But I want to talk to the person also to get their interest.
Right, and I do intend next month to bring a fuller report of what the Equity Committee has accomplished, because I think it is valid to share with folks, and it's really impressive. Yeah.
Okay, you gave your report. Any report?
Not now.
Christine?
No.
I could go on about housing and stuff, but I did want to share that at EPAP last night, I heard that TriMet was, and it goes before their board, I believe, tomorrow, but they are going to carve out a piece of dollars. It's not a huge amount. It's under $500,000 for youth passes for next year. So I thought all the work that Opal has done and the youth around here have done has really impacted TriMet, and actually the state is requiring them spending a certain percentage for youth transportation. So it's from those dollars from the transportation legislation that went through. Anyway, other than that, I have nothing. If there's, Ken, do you have anything else? This is going to be a short meeting. Anyway, then I'll adjourn the meeting.